Good morning, everyone.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Nice to have so many people joining here. So can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So before learning about what SQL is and where do we use it and how much of a use does a business analyst would have in his day-to-day career, so we're going to learn some basic stuff. Okay. So we're going to first learn what is a database or what is data. Okay. Yeah. So you can see a database is an organized collection of data generally stored and accessed from a computer system. Now, most of the people would now use desktops and laptops and even mobile phones. Everything has a property where all the data is stored. For example, of desktops or laptops, it has their own hard disk, external or internal, to store all the different kinds of data. And for your mobile phones, you have your memory card or inbuilt data, inbuilt memory, wherein you can save all the different kinds of data that you store in your device. So all these are a type of databases. And why do you have these particular databases or devices which can store data? Because whatever the data that we have, for a mobile phone, if we take, we'll have photos, we'll have videos, and we'll have all different kinds of data, presentations, documentations, etc. So all these are scrambled data, like it is thrown everywhere. Like when you have a database, it will help you and have it organized way, like photos in a particular set or videos in a particular folder or all kind of different documents in a particular folder. So like that you can organize whatever the data that you have in a pretty good manner. So that is where this database helps. And you can see purpose of the database: organize data and make it available in the convenient forms. So let's take this famous example. Like I think most of you know this Naukri portal, right? Job applying portal. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So for what purpose do we use Naukri? So we use that platform in order for us to apply for any job that we want to do. So what is the process of it? So first we create an account, like we put in our personal details and then we upload our resume, our latest resume, we upload it. And based on our preferences, like which kind of job that we want to apply, we put all of that. And when we complete entering all these different kinds of details, we'll be shown all the job availability based on the location, based on the experience, whatever. So if you click, like, okay, you found one particular job offer, job vacancy, which is more suited for you. Now what you do, you clicked on apply. So when you click on apply, it will show that you have applied for this job. So what happens in that particular instance? Your resume will be sent to the person whoever has posted about the vacancy, right? So now how does your particular resume will go to that company? Because that is where the data comes in, right? Whenever you fill in your details and whenever you upload your resume and you make your account, there will be all these different kinds of a folder is created for you. Like let's say that my name is Krishna, so I have filled in all my details, and after that I have uploaded my resume. And when I do that in this server or in the database of Naukri, a particular folder will be created for me, and in that my details and my resume, everything will be there. So whenever I apply for any kind of job, that particular resume is retrieved from my database and it will be sent to whoever I have applied. So that is why when you apply for it, only your resume will go. There will be a lakhs of people who have created their own account, they have their own resumes. So when you click on it, only your resume will go, because there is an organized data. If there is no organized data, if you click on apply, then instead of your resume, some other's resume will go. So that is the reason we have this organized set of data wherein we divide all the different section of data that is available for us. So that is the purpose of database. And yeah, so these are the fundamental functions of a database. So what can we do when you have this database access? So we can create a database, and we can read a database, and we can update the database, and we can delete it. So creating, updating, deleting, all this done by a database administrator. So for any IT company, for any kind of company which works on data or which needs data, there will be a particular person or a number of persons called junior data administrators or database administrators. There will be a set of people who is responsible to maintain all the different kinds of data for a company. So those are the only people that would have access to manipulate or create or do anything with the data. Now let's say that you guys you are a business analyst and I am a database administrator. So we are working on a IT company, in a IT company. Now I will handle each and every bit of data that is, and I will store, or I will create number of databases, and there will be number of application that we have. So for each and every application, I have a set of database, and in that I have all the different kinds of details created in that. Now, if what does a business analyst do? He goes to the client, and if the client wants to have a particular set of data, or if the business analyst would want to show a particular set of data to the client or to the technical team, so he can't directly access the database. So other than database admin, any other person who wants to have access or who wants to look into a data, this database admin has to give the access to that particular employee. Other than that, you cannot access any kind of database. So the reading part, so when, let's say, you have approached a database admin, and you said that, okay, for this particular project I need data of this particular kind, so can you please give access to me, or similar to. So once that is done, the database admin would send you a mail or send you a message, and by clicking it, you will get access to the database, and you will get only the access to read. You cannot update, you cannot delete, you cannot manipulate any kind of data. You will be just given access to read the data. So that is what happens in a database. Database admin will create data, create databases, and create everything in that, and he can update it or he can delete it. So these are all the functions that will be happening in the database. And yeah, what is SQL now? So whatever the database that is there, let's say that we have tons of data that is stored in the server or stored in the database. So how do we retrieve that or put it in the screen? So for that, this structured query language or SQL is used. You can see that it is a programming language that is designed to facilitate retrieving specific information from the databases. So whatever the data that is there inside the database, using this language, you call that data up to the screen. Okay. And SQL is for managing the relational databases. Now there are two kinds of databases that are available in the market. One is database management system, and another is relationship database management system. Now let's see what is the difference in between these two. You can see database management system. Now, if you look at your mobile phone, you'll have something called File Explorer or ZArchive or whatever application you use as File Explorer. Now, if you open it, you'll get all different kinds of folders. Like for photos, one folder; for video, one folder; for WhatsApp, one folder. There will be folders designed for each and every application. Inside that folders, there will be another folder. There might be another folder wherein you store all the different kinds of data. So that is the way the database management system stores the data. It stores the data as a file. But in the relationship database management system, instead of storing the data as a file, it will store the data as a tabular format. Like you see in the Excel. So it will be storing the data in the tabular format. You can see in database management system, data is generally stored in either a hierarchical or a navigational form. Like you can see that you can sort the data, and it is stored from based on the hierarchical. Like we can divide that hierarchical also, like which one occupies more space, or which particular data occupies more space, or which particular data has more recently updated. So like that, there will be different kinds of hierarchical formats or navigational formats in which we store the database, we store the data. And in the RDBMS, the table have an identifier called the primary key, and the data values are stored inside the form of tables. So what is this primary key that we'll get to know sooner? So the only thing difference is that the database management system, it stores the whatever the data is there as a file format, but in the RDBMS it will store in the tabular format. And the positive function of RDBMS is all the tables, like all the different kinds of data that we create and all the tables that we've created, all those should be connected to each other, so that when we want any kind of particular information combining all these tables, we'll be able to view that easily. And compared to DBMS, relationship database management system can handle a large amount of data, and there can be multiple users. Now if you see, database management system will only have one user. So for your memory card, you will be the only user, unless you give the phone to another guy, he will be using it, so that's a different matter. So for your memory card, you will be the only guy using it most of the time. And when you go to IT companies also, there will be only one person. There are only one user who will be doing all this stuff, and RDBMS can be done by multiple users. And you can see example of RDBMS: MySQL, Postgres, SQL Server, Oracle. So people confuse between SQL language and SQL language performing platforms, wherein MySQL, Microsoft Server SQL, and Postgres SQL, Oracle, these are all the platforms where we write our SQL programming language to retrieve data. So this is a small difference between a relationship database management system and the database management system. And yeah, so in the RDBMS, we create tables like this. So we create columns are there, names and rows are there. You can see a row is called a record and a column is called a field. You can see that ID, name, like that. So in this format, the data is stored in the relationship database management system. Now we've talked about foreign keys and primary keys. So what foreign key and primary key is? Now let's say that you are using a relationship database system for your retail store. Let's say that you have your retail store and you want to store your customer details and your product or item details. So first you have a table, like you have the customer ID, wherein for each and every entry it will be different, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The same number will not repeat again. And after that you will have the customer name, and then where is the customer from, and the state and the PIN number. So this will be the customer table where you will be filling all the details. And other than the customer table, you will have item table, wherein you describe all the different kinds of products that you sell, the camera or the memory card or the headphones and their description, like that. So if you want to know how many sales has happened, then what you do, see, you can see that key option here. Here it is a key and here it is a key. So what is this key? So this is called as a primary key. Primary key in the sense, so in every table that you create, in how many tables you create or every table, there should be one particular column where the entries that we do, which should not repeat. In the name column, there could be two customers with same names, or two customers coming from two same similar states or similar cities, or their pin code could be similar, but their ID could never be similar. First entry 1, second entry 2, third entry 3, and like that it will be keep on changing no matter how many entries that we give in the customer table. Similar to the item number also, or the product number also, the name can be same or the description can be same, but the item ID, whatever the ID that we give, it will always be changing no matter how many entries do we give. So for those constantly changing or no similar data repeating columns, we give it as primary key. Okay, so when we give primary key, what is the reason that we give primary key? Because as I've told, each and every table should be related, should be connected to another table in this relationship database management system. So how do we relate 2 or 3 or more than 2 tables? Is that by using these primary keys. So you can see we have this item and we have this customer. And when we want to know how many sales has happened, you can see a sales table here. In that we created a sales ID and it will go on 1, 2, 3. And here you can see item ID. Item ID means this one, and the customer ID, which means this. So we have connected the customer ID which is from here, and the item ID which is from here, and we connected that into the sales table, and then quantity and price. So no matter line wise, we can see how many items has been sold and to which customer, what kind of customer has taken. Now you can see item 1 is taken by the customer ID. Item 1 is camera, and customer ID 2, who is he? Steve Smith. So how many quantity has he taken? 3. He has paid this much price. And like that, you can see item number 2 is taken. Item number 2 is a memory card, and is again taken by the Steve Smith. Item number 1, camera, and it is item customer number 1, which is taken by the Bill Smith. So like that, customer details and item details are connected to this particular table via the primary keys. Now how do we connect this? We'll get to know while we get into the session more. And these are all the basics. Like you can see, tables are related by keys, and table keys are used to create relationships with tables. Now these primary keys, for each and every table that you create would have a primary key, and by using those primary key we connect other tables to each other. And yeah, so one more important thing is, whatever the column is there that we give the primary key to, it shouldn't have any kind of null values. You can see 1 is there, 2 is there, and if there is nothing there, it is blank, there it will show as an error, because this particular ID which we have given as a primary key, it shouldn't have any kind of null values or 0 values. And foreign keys are used to connect two tables together. So we have learned about primary keys. Now what is this foreign key? Foreign key means, as you can see, we have connected the customer primary key to sales and the item primary key to sales. Now these are the primary keys for itself, like ID is the primary key for customer and item ID is primary key for item. But for the sales, yeah, this session, I think it might take 2 hours, 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Okay, I'll try to finish it fast, no problem. Yeah, so as I've been saying, customer, like this primary key, customer primary key is ID, and the item has this item ID primary key. But when we connect it in the sales table, you can see that these two are different tables. See, item ID and customer ID are not the original tables of the sales. They are imported from, or they are connected from another tables. So these will be the foreign keys for the sales. Hope you're getting this. Now this customer has the primary key of ID, and the item has primary key of item ID, and the sales has its own primary called sales ID. But the item ID and customer ID are connected from outside. The item ID is taken in here and the customer ID is taken in here. So these two will be called as foreign keys for sales. Yeah, that is how we define the primary key and the foreign key. So how do we connect them? Using join statements. Whatever those join statements are, we're going to learn. Yeah. And yeah, types of commands in SQL. We have 4 different types of commands in SQL. One is DDL, data definition language, and DQL, which is data query language, DML, which is data manipulation language, and DCL, which is data control language. So while we get into it, we're going to learn more, not entirely, but some of them. So I hope everyone understood the introductory part. Any doubts in this?
Krishna, I have one doubt. Like, who decides the primary key, which we use as a foreign key later?
That we can decide. Like, we first create all this kind of tables. You can see we have created a customer table and we have created an item table. So if we want to, view how many sales has happened, so then what we do, we create another table to incorporate these values. So I think if you are familiar with any kind of programming language, what happens if you want to add two numbers, a equals to 1 and b equals to 2. Now if you want to add it, there will be an output coming, but you have to store that output into another variable, right? So to store the connection of these two into another variable, we have created sales, and in that table we add this primary keys. Okay, so these primary
Okay.
keys, when we connect it into the sales, we'll be calling these as the foreign keys for the sales. So I'll be just giving a quick introduction, a quick overview of all the introductions. So first, databases. Databases are the organized collection of data that we generally stored and accessed from a computer system or a mobile phone, anything. It can be hard disk or a memory card. And the purpose of the database is to organize data and make it available into convenient forms. So if you do not have any kind of database, we will have the data, but they will not be in an organized format. The database will help us keep all the data in an organized format so that it will be easy for us to use it again. And in a database, we have these four fundamental functions: create, update, delete, and read. We can create a database, we can update the database, we can delete the database, or we can read it. And SQL is structured query language. It is used to retrieve or take out data from the databases. So this is the language that we use to communicate with the database and take out the necessary data that is required for us. And we have two kinds of databases: database management system and relationship database management system. This particular SQL is used to communicate with the relationship database, not the normal database management system. And then we have seen the differences. Database management system stores the data as a file format, whereas the relationship database management system stores it in a tabular format. And the DBMS cannot handle large files, but the RDBMS can handle a large amount of files, and it can support multiple users. And examples you can see: MySQL, PostgreSQL, Oracle Server, Microsoft Server. So these are all the servers where we use SQL, and those are all follow the RDBMS. And this is an example of how do we create a table. And you can see we have given columns and we have given rows, and row is called a record and column is called a field. And a unique key identifies a table row. See, the unique, which is primary key, is given to one particular row where the number of entries that we have do not repeat itself or do not have any kind of null values. These two conditions should be satisfied if we want to give a primary key. Now, after giving the primary key, when we want, the reason why we give the primary key is for us to have the relation between all the different kinds of tables. This primary key helps us to have a connection or the relation between two or more different kinds of tables. And these are all the commands that we have throughout the SQL, which are divided into four types: data definition language, data query language, data manipulation, and data control language. So yeah, so for a business analyst, we wouldn't go much deep, and we'll just go through what is the bare minimum that we require in our day-to-day career. Like, we wouldn't create anything, we wouldn't create any databases, we wouldn't update it, we wouldn't insert any kind of data, or we will not delete anything. The only thing that we do is take out the data from which is already there, and we're gonna read it. So let's try to see how it happens. And let me open my Microsoft server management system. Yeah. So this server management system, or place where we can do the SQL commands, it can be from the Microsoft, or it can be from the Oracle, and it can be from MySQL. So whatever it is that you can use based on your preference. Yeah. So if it is the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, when you open it, it will show this kind of pop-up, and it is already has its own server inbuilt. You can just click on connect. And we have this options here: the databases, security, all these different kinds of options. You don't have to do any kind of changes in this. Now, if you click on this plus one, databases, it opens all the different kinds of databases that we use or that we work on. So I have already used this kind of sales DB previously. Now we'll try to create another database and we'll work on it. And in order for us to put our queries in it, here you can see a new query is there. You click on it. Yeah, so it opened a new tab wherein we can write our SQL code. So first, let's try to see. Before starting, you can see that when you drag this down, you have this all different kinds of things. Just excluding the CSDB, which I have imported from outside, the master, model, MSDB, and TempDB are four inbuilt databases which have been built inside this server management system. So you don't have to do any kind of changes to those. And whenever you're doing any kind of commands in this, So make sure that whatever databases that you've already created that you want to take the data from, yeah, it is mentioned here. Like I'll just show you. Now before that, let's try to create a table. For that, you can just write create. Can you able to see the code clearly?
Yes.
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 So to create a database, we can just type in the word create and then we'll write database. Yeah. So SQL is not a case sensitive language. You can write anywhere, you can write the capital letters or small letters, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Create database. So let's try to create a school database, for example, and let's name it as school. Okay. And here you have the execute button. Executed. Yeah, you can see that command completed successfully. Now, if you want to see whether this one is really created or not, you can go to this option here where you can drag the database and you can see it is not there. Just try to refresh it. See, the school database is created. Now we have successfully created a database. No, you don't have to create anything. I'm just telling you the basic things. Like if I want to just tell you what really a BA would do, I'll just tell you now. Now see, I have the sales DB, right? So in that sales DB, if you click on this, you'll see the tables, and in that I have created 4 different kinds of tables. One is customer, one is employee, one is product, and one is sales. Now I'll try to call those, or I'll try to view those data in here. For that, the command is select star from customers, for example,
Table name.
from customers. So this means that star means whatever the things that are there, the entirety of the data that is there in the customer table, that we have to show that in front of the screen. Now if you want a particular thing here, like let's say select first name, for example, first name from customers, so only the first name of all the customers would come down. Let's try to put everything now. Execute. Yeah, you can see all the different kinds of details, like the first name, the middle name, and the last name. We have all this kind of people here.
Just a query. Before writing this command, did you select any folder like in the select database?
No, I haven't selected anything.
Just,
See what happens is,
okay.
so whatever data that we have, if you can see, the problem where you get an error is most of the time. Yeah. See, when you open this particular server management system, it will be opening like this. So you have this master one by default, and see you have all the different kinds of databases. Now, if you want to retrieve the customer details, which is in the sales DB database, now if you try to do the same thing here, select from customers. Now, if you execute it, you'll get an error because it is not in the database that you're working on. So for that, what you have to do is whenever you're trying to retrieve some data, you have to make sure that that particular database is active in here. Or else if you tend to forget these kind of details, another practice could be whatever database that you are supposed to take the information from, you can just type use and type the database name. And now you execute it, you have to CSDB.
Hey Krishna, can you explain this point once again?
Which one?
The same
This
use
customers.
sales.
Sorry?
Use sales DB. You were saying some point, right? Just I didn't get that point.
So what I've been saying is when you open the server management system here, so by default, it will come like this. Like you can see that the master, model, MSDB, and the temp. So these two are the things that we have created. Like school, we have just created a few minutes ago, and the sales DB is another database that I've previously worked on. So when you want to retrieve data from this particular sales database. Now, as I've told previous, by default you have this master database active. Now, if you try to execute it, we'll get an error because this customer details are not present in this particular master database. So we have that in the sales DB. So whenever we open it and we want to retrieve data from one particular database, we have to select that database in here. Or else, if you tend to forget to do this every time, what you can do is you can write use and write the database name. Now, if you do this and if you select everything and if you click execute, then you'll get all the different kinds of data. Okay, this is how most of the errors would come. And yeah, so we have customers, and what are the different kinds of data that we have here? Sales DB, and you drag down a table, and we have employees, and we have products. Execute. So you can see we have the yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Krishna. This is Aniket. I just had one question. Are these database responsibilities specific only to a techno-functional BA or across all BA's roles?
See, as I've been telling you, you will just have to look into the database. Like, you just have to know a few of the queries where you have to retrieve the data from already built database. Like the database admin would be there. He'll be building or creating the databases. He'll be filling all the different kinds of details in it, whatever the required. So what you will be using SQL majorly for is to use these kind of select commands. Like you see that if you're working in a retail store as a business analyst, for example, so you want to see how many sales has happened, or how many customers are there, or how many employees or products are there. So you have to know these basic commands so that you use these commands to retrieve the data that you want. So you won't be creating, deleting, or updating anything. As a business analyst, mostly you would only use this particular SQL queries to retrieve data which is already there and put that in the screen and go through all the relevant data that you want. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So this is an example. So you can see that we have the customer details and we have employee details, and if you go down, you have all the different kinds of product details. Now, as we guys are already here, so what I thought is I'll just tell you how to create database and how to insert, or how to create tables and how to insert data in it. So is that okay? Let's discuss about those also.
Just a question regarding the key what you were telling. Where is that key in this?
Regarding the primary
Primary
keys you're
key
talking
that
about?
you hold for
Yeah, so
yeah, primary key.
yeah, we'll get to know that in a moment. We will get to know that where do we use the primary key and how do we use that practically in this. So yeah, so let's get into it. We have created a database called school, and after creating that, so yeah, let's try to create one more thing wherein I can show you how to delete a database. Now create database and SCHOLV2. So let's say we have created another database called school v2. Now if we again refresh, we have created a database, and when we want to delete a particular database, what we do drop database and cool v2, and yeah, so now if you click the execute button, we'll get an error because in the SQL server the code will be running from top to bottom. Now if you run it, it will again run the create database v2. Now then we'll get an error. So in order to stop that, what we'll do is we'll select only the part that we want to execute, and then we'll click it. See, command completed successfully. See, it is removed here. CSDB and school is there. Now carefully, like you won't use it most of the time, but I'm just telling you that whenever you're trying to drop or delete any kind of databases, be cautious. Like when you do it, you won't be able to retrieve it again. So as a BA, you wouldn't get a chance to do that anyway, but just for the caution's sake. So we have created school, and in that school, so now we'll see how to create a table. Okay, so in a school, what are the who are the people who would we have? The students and the teachers, and yeah, students and teachers are the staff that the people and the staff that we have. And other thing that we need to put into the database could be the courses. Like, so what are the courses that the school offers? So we have to create a table for students, and we'll have to create a table for courses that the school offers, and we have to create a table for the teachers. Let's try to do that. Okay, now, so just for a practice, let's try to write here that we are using, or whatever the command that we are supposed to do, we are doing it in the school database. So if we open it, for example, if we thought that we opened it just now and it opens as master here, if we do not have this one, we'll get an error. Okay? So use school database, and then we'll try to click create table. And what could be the table name? Let's say that students. Okay, and yeah. So in this, first we have to give a ID. There will be ID, and hope you are all aware of the data types that we have in any kind of programming language. So in the ID, like it is a numeric format, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these IDs would be there. Now for that, we'll have the integer as a data type. So when we are not getting into this entirely because we do not need that much, but when we do the SQL, when we go into the server management systems, so we'll have different a number of databases that we have. We have integer, we have character, we have nvarchar, which is a number, variable, and character, and we have date, time, and all these different kinds of data types that a database admin would have to know, not the business analyst. So yeah, so we are creating an ID, and it is an integer, and yeah, the primary key is given here. Primary key means, see, this ID will not repeat itself. Like, let's say that we have 10 entries of students, it will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It won't repeat 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, right? So there won't be any repetition of any kind of details that we enter. So that is the reason why we keep this as a primary key.
Basically, we say it is a unique ID, right?
Yes, a unique ID. Whenever a table consists a unique ID and it doesn't have any kind of null values, that we declare as a primary key for that table.
Okay.
And we have to mention, yeah. So one more thing is, when we mention primary key, we don't have to separately mention not null. So null and not null means we are stating that if we keep null, or if we do not keep anything also, it can be accepted as a null value. A null value or a blank value is accepted. But we keep on not null, it is stating that we do not accept any null value. You have to keep something in it. That is what this table is stating, this particular line is stating. So when you give primary key, it automatically makes that it is a not null value. You have to keep something in it. But just for a practice sake, we're going to keep it not null. And then we have identifier or identity. Identity means, so when we start the ID, like whenever we try to put the inputs in the table, by using this identity, we are stating that the ID should start from number 1 and it should increment one by one. Like let's say that we have 5 entries. So it will start from 1, then it will become 2, then it will become 3, 4, and 5. Now if we keep 2 here, 2 comma 2, which will become 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Like that, the incrementations will be happening. So that is the reason why we use this identifier. So now we have created an ID for the student table, and after that we need to have a name of the student. First name, and yes. Any questions? Okay. So first name, and for that we have to do the data type. So as I've told you, there will be a number of data types: character, variable character, number variable character. There will be different kinds of, all these different kinds of data types will be there. So for the first name, or for the name, we use this nvarchar, and we are giving 50. 50 means this particular name, whatever entry that we give, it shouldn't exceed more than 50 characters. We are limiting it. First name,
Hi, Krishna.
yes.
Krishna, hi, this is Bhavna. Actually, I have a question. When we are writing a syntax, we use this semicolon. So, is there any particular rule? Because it's quite confusing. Sometimes we do it in the first line, sometime at the bottom, and then you get error because you have not placed the semicolon at the right place. And according to the database, also sometimes you require it, sometimes you don't require it. So, any
Yes.
particular rule of it?
See, for this particular SQL or Microsoft server, we do not require, we don't have to keep any kind of semicolons. You can use it or you cannot use it. It changes based on the server that we use. For Oracle, it might be different, and for MySQL, it might be different. And for the Microsoft server that we're currently using, we do not require any kind of semicolons. We can either keep it or not keep it. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Okay. So according to the database, the rule is there.
Yeah, according to the server that you use to communicate with the database, the rule might change. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we have created the first name and we have given the data type for it, and we can also mention it is not null because we need to have a student's first name, right? So if you're noticing it, I'm keeping comma for each and every sentence that I'm using. And if it is the last one, we cannot, we can stop using the comma here. And we have the first name, and let's try to create the last name also. Last name, and we keep it up to 50, or you can keep it up to 10, 15, whatever it is, and not null. And after that, let's try to give the date of birth. Okay, date of birth of the student. And this one, we have the date, time, or date library. So in the recent servers which have been updated, the 2018, 2019 ones, for the date displaying, we use a date library, and for the previous versions, which are 2016, 2015, 14, there is something called date time library. So just for the sake, I'm using the date time library. You can use date also, that is not a problem. And you can keep it not null. And yeah, when we see the date time library or date of birth, the format would be like this: year, month, and date. So this is how we display the dates, or the date of births or any kind of enrollments date that we have to do. So even though you use the date time library or the date time data type or the date data type, this is how we look into the date of births. So yeah, using two lines is what we call as comment. So in other languages or in other languages or other platforms where we try to put in our code, it can be hash or it can be double hash or it can be like this, so whatever it is. But for SQL in the Microsoft server, we use these two lines in order to comment out a line. So comment out is nothing but the line will be there, but it will not be executed. The server which we're working, it will just neglect that one. So it is used to have a comment like, okay, this is to show the students date of birth. So this line will not have any kind of importance to it. Yeah. So we have the date of birth, and then we'll try to write the enrollment date of the student. We can still use the date time library, and let's try to keep it null. So a student might come to a school and he might register, but he may not enroll. So he can look into other schools, other 3, 4, 5 or schools, and he can enroll anywhere. Right. So we'll just try to keep it as null, and you can see that there is no comma that I have given, as it is the end one. See, I have opened a bracket and I have closed. Now let's try to execute it. See, command completed successfully. Now we have created a table. Now how do we view the table? We have already seen the command. Can anybody tell me how do we view the tables?
Select star from.
Select
and star.
star from students.
The table is students. And as I've already told, if you click on execute, it will run the entire thing. So to prevent that, we'll just select what is the thing that we have to execute and we click on it. You can see ID, first name, last name, date of birth, and enroll date is created. And as we do not have any kind of values in it yet, so we only have the headings here. Clear? Now we have created,
Hi Krishna.
yes, hi,
I have a doubt actually. You mentioned that these tables are created by administrators, right? Database administrators, right?
yes.
So while we just do retrieving of the data, how can we know which column is a primary key and which column is a foreign key, like that? We don't prepare these tables, right? Then how can we get to know that those are the primary keys and foreign keys?
Yeah.
Do we really need to know those are the primary keys or foreign keys?
Actually, we don't really need to know which one is a primary key and which one is a foreign key, right? So when you are a business analyst and let's say that you're talking to a client, and if the client wants, okay, I want all the different kinds of details regarding these things. So what you do, you'll approach the database admin and you'll tell him that, okay, the client is asking this particular database details, and just give me the access and I'll just go through all the different kinds of details. Now he'll give the access to you and you'll use these commands to take out whatever the data that is inside the database, and you just go through the different kinds of data that you need. So you don't have to bother about which one is a primary key, which one is a foreign key. That is not your job to worry about. It is the database admin who will take care of everything. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we have created a students table, and you can see if you click on the school database, and here you have the tables expanded. So you have the dbo.students, and let's try to create another one, and you guys have to help me in this. Create table called courses, right? So for the courses, we will have, we'll also have course ID, right? For each and every course we have an ID, right? Course ID is there, and ID it is also an integer data type, and it should also be a primary key because it will be a unique one, and we have to give the identity because it has to increment every time. Course ID is created, and let's try to string this one here. And after course ID, we have to create the course title, and course title can be in varchar, and let's try to keep it as 20, for example, and let's keep it not null, and number of credits can be integer, and we'll do not have to keep it not null because there could be some courses or some subjects which may not have any kind of credits. And then we'll try to do the course code. So course code can be a combination of alphabets and numbers, like let's say that CS005 can be a course code, for example. So like that, when we have to support those kind of things, we'll do in varchar, wherein we can support alphanumeric entries. So let's try to keep it under 5. No. So we have course ID, and we have put it an integer, we have given the primary key, and we have given the identifier, which helps us to increment each and every value by 1. And we have given title, and it is not null, and we have given a number of credits, and we have given the course code. Now let's try to execute this again. I'm going to select it and click execute. It is done. Now let's try to.
Hi Krishna.
Hi.
In the previous table students, for primary key also you mentioned not null, right?
Yes.
What is the use of mentioning that not null? You already mentioned identity. So there is no use of mentioning not null, right? We can. You also mentioned that it is a primary key, right?
Yes.
So you also mentioned not null. It's not that much necessary, right, to
Yes,
mention
it
not
is
null
not.
in that
Yeah,
previous table.
when you mention primary key, you don't have to mention not null, because the primary key represents that
Yeah, it's
whatever the entry it is, it shouldn't have any kind of null value.
yeah,
I just mentioned it here because
yeah.
it is the first time that we're practicing, right? So just to have a knowledge on.
Okay. Yeah. That's what my doubt is. Actually, primary. You said that primary key itself it's not null, and
Yes.
you also mentioned that its identity it will increment by one each
Yes.
time. So there is no need, right? There. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have created this course table also. Let's try to retrieve it again. Select from, what was the name again? Courses. And we'll select it and we'll execute it. So again, course ID, title, number of credits, and course code. And this is how we create table using the SQL language, right? So in the yes,
Krishna, if I want to check only specific two fields in a table, there might be in number of fields. So if
yes,
I want to retrieve only specific, for example, like title and courses,
yes,
what would be the condition?
yeah. That we'll get to see. Just wait for a few minutes. We are going it. We are moving on. Line by line. We'll get to that.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
So we have created a students table and we have created a course table using the SQL language. And what is the beauty of these kind of server management systems is that without doing any kind of SQL code also, we can create tables or we can create databases. So how means, so we have all these things, right? Now, if you want to create a database, you can just right click on it. You have new database. So you can just type in whatever the database name that you want to give. And if you click on OK, a new database will be created. So instead of using create database and naming, you can directly create that here. And if you want to create any kind of tables, so let's say that you have created the school database, and for that, if you want to create a table, now you can go here and you can right click on it. See, you can create a table here. And in this table, you can mention all the different kinds of column details, your ID, and then course ID and title. All this you can just manually type. So this is also another way for you to create databases and tables without doing any kind of code. So we have created a student and we have created courses. Let's try to create for the teacher. Okay. So what could be the details? Like, okay, let's try to give ID for the teacher as well. So let's try to make it teacher ID. And the database for it. See, as I've told you, there are a number of data types that we can use. So right now, let's focus on the things that are mandatory here. So teacher ID, and here the ID is we shouldn't allow any nulls here. We remove it, and yeah. Now if you right click on it, you can see that set primary key. You can click this one and it will become a primary key. So we have created a teacher ID and we have given the data type, and we are mentioning not null, or we have created the primary key, and now we have to give the identity. So now if you drag this one up, you can see this identity specification. Double click and double click on is identity. Now it will become 1 and 1. Now the identity is also active. So we have created a teacher ID, and let's try to give the first name for the teacher, and it can be Nwarchar, and we can remove the allow nulls, and the last name, and Nwarchar, and let's say the date of join, the date where they have joined the school, for example. It can be date or date time. Yes. So we have mentioned teacher ID, first name, last name, and date of join. Now what we'll do is we'll try to save it. When I click on Control S, and we can name it as teachers and click enter. So your table is created, and you can remove this one. And if you refresh it, so you have the teachers table created. Let's try to recall it. Select from teachers and execute. So you can see teacher ID, first name, last name, and date of join. So we have created 3 tables here, 2 by using the SQL language and 1 by using the server options. Now, as we've created, we know how to create the databases and we know how to drop or delete the databases, and we have created tables, and now we'll get to know how do we insert the data inside the tables. Okay, till now everything's clear? Any doubt?
Hi, Krishna.
Hi.
Can you please explain once again about how you created identity in a teachers table?
Okay, I'll do that. So
Teachers.
just a second. See, if we click on ID here and we give data type, and if you want to give the identity, you can just drag it here, drag this one up, and you can see the identity specification. Double click, and it is currently no, it is not available now. Now if you click on is identity, it will become 1 and 1. Identity seed, which is where it starts, and identity increment, it will become 1 and 1. Clear now?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any more doubts up to this point? Okay. Yeah. So let's try to insert the details inside the tables. You can just click on insert and into which table. Let's try to do the students one first. Students, and there you have to do one thing here, which is mentioning all the different kinds of values that we have. Now if you see this one, we have first name, last name, date of birth, and enroll date. So whenever we try to insert the data into the table, we don't have to mention the ID, because whenever we do any kind of entry, the ID will automatically increment itself. So there is no need for you to separately give any kind of input for the ID. Now let's try to start the first name. So first we have the first name, then we have last name, then we have date of birth, then we have enroll date. So now what we'll do is we'll try to use this one, values, and whatever details that you put in this, it has to align in this format. Like first you have to put in the first name, and second you have to put in the last name, third should be the date of birth, and fourth should be the enrollment date. Okay, now if you try to do it in a different way, you'll get an error. So let's try to insert one thing here. Value, let's say okay, give me a name, give me a first name and last name, guys.
Divya.
Okay, Divya.
Lela. Lella.
Okay, and let's try to give a random date of birth. Okay, so
Okay.
okay, and enrolled date, where at which date you have enrolled, which could be, let's say that 2018 and 10 10 5. Okay, so comma, and we'll try to, yeah, let's try to do one more thing here. Okay, I need around 4 to 5 values here. So that means I need 4 to 5 first names and last names. Come on, another one. Another first name, guys. Anyone?
Mahindra.
Okay. Mahindra and
Nad. NADH.
okay. And so the enrollment could be 2018, let's say 09, 15. And okay. Another one. Another first name. Sorry. Okay. Okay, Vipas Singh. So the last one and the last username. Sorry, the last first name and last name.
OSHEEN.
Sorry.
OSHEEN.
Okay.
Shrivastava.
Can you spell this one too?
SH.
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 Surabha.
RI.
Okay.
VASTAVA.
So we have 4 entries here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll select this and we'll try to execute it. Okay, so I have done this one here. First name and see, you can see 4 rows are affected. Now if you try to recall the students table, select from students, execute. See, ID is incremented automatically 1, 2, 3, 4. First name, last name, and the date of birth and the enrolled. Yes?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, you made a table while this server option,
Yes.
new table. After making the table, you just moved out to this page where you are just writing all these things. Can you just let me know how did you move out?
See, first, if you want to create, you can go to click on the table option and you click on
New table.
and table. And once you fill in all the details that you need, you can save it by using Control S and you can just remove it.
Yeah. Okay. It can
That's
be directly removed.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So this is how
Hi.
you can, yes. Hi.
Do we need quotations for this date also while writing this syntax?
Which date are you talking about?
This dates you mentioned, well, insert into students this date of birth and enroll date. You
We don't
mentioned
have.
those in.
No, this doesn't require any kind of quotations.
No, under the values you mentioned the dates, right? 1998
Yes.
that you that you wrote under quotations, right?
Yes.
Those quotations are necessary. Actually, for bar chart, we write in quotations. I know that,
Yeah, but
but these dates also we write in.
yeah. So when we are including the values here, so we need to mention the quotation marks. But if it is an integer, then you don't have to mention any quotation. So other than the integer, you have to mention it.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what mattered. Okay. Thank you.
So we have created and we have inserted the details into the students table, and then the same could be done for the courses, and we can do that in this direct server option also you can see edit top 200 rows. So in this you can give a title here, course title. So let's try to do HTML and number of credits. So let's say it requires 2 credits and the course code HT001, right? And let's say Java can be 1 course and the number of credits can be 3. And let's try to do this Python and above 3 and like this. SQL can be null and and let's say React can also be null. Let's say JavaScript, say 4 JS006. Okay, so we have filled in the title, the number of credits, and the course code. So you can just click on Control S to save it, and you can just remove it. Right now, if you try to call on the course table, exit, so you can see the details. So you can either use the SQL code to fill in all the details, or you can use the server options to do this. But when you're dealing with a lot of, millions of data or thousands of data, so you can just import that from outside. So when you have a data which is in an Excel sheet available and you have in any other format, so you can just import that particular data into this particular server database. Now, if you want to import, an Excel sheet of data that is there, which you have to include in the school database. So you can right click on it and you can go to the tasks, in which if you go down, you can see that import data option is there. So using that, if you click on it, you have this option and data source. Which kind of data are you importing? Is it Microsoft Access or Excel? If you click on Excel and you select the version and you select the path and you click on next, then you can directly import the outside data which is present in the Excel into this particular database. Okay, so we have given, so you can see you can view multiple tables at a time also by selecting this. See, I have the student table and I have the course table here, and let's try to give in the teachers table also. Okay, so edit, and so first name could be, sorry if the spelling is wrong, and so let's try to set it for 3 students, sorry, 3 teachers for now, and click on Control S, and you're done with it. Then teachers, select, and you can see the teachers table here. All these 3 tables are there. Now, someone asked if you want to view a particular table, what do we have to do? So we have this. Let's try to do that on the courses table. So we have course title, number of credits, and course code. So what we can do is, we can, instead of the star here, select, let's say, the title. So we just want to view all the different kinds of courses that are there, the course title. Select title from courses. Execute. You can see only the titles of the course are present. Or if you want to view title, comma, number of credits. if you want to view the title and the number of credits of the courses. Execute. You can only have those three. Now the star is used to view all the information that is there inside that particular table. Execute. Like that. Now one more thing what you can do is we have this student table wherein first name and last name, date of birth is there. Now if you want what you wanted to do is instead of having two different tables to first name and last name, what can we do to view it in a single table? So for that, first name plus last name as, or you can say as full name or student name. Yeah. So this as is what we call as alias. There is a concept called alias. I'll just write it down. Yeah. So this is just using this as option. Like instead of having this first name and last name as two different columns, we sum them up and we make that into a single table called student name. Select. See, a student name is there, and you can see that those two are connected. Let's try to give a more space in here. Execute. You can see spaces happen here. Divya, Mahendra, Vibha, and Oshi. So like that, you can view a particular information on a table using these kind of options. Clear? Any doubts till this point? No? Guys, response? Yes.
Hi, this is like not regarding this. I was just trying to understand when we are, right clicking and manually putting in data rather than coding it. Is the whole code getting recorded somewhere also?
Yes. So when we manually, when we try to
If
put it
I'm
in a table.
right click and type in.
Yes.
So is the code also getting like? Because I didn't see that entirely, at least in this Microsoft SQL this thing server, I did not see it. So I just want to know that.
Yeah, so when we manually put all the details inside the server option, the code will run background. So all this coding that we do here, inserting the first name, last name, and doing the semicolons, all these things are done in the background when we use the tables. So this Microsoft server will do that for us. Okay, so it is an easy.
So we will not have like an output for it. Like I just want to understand, like if as a newer beginner,
Yes.
if I have this and I'm doing it, so I just want to know what code actually went in the background. Is there a way to find that out? That's what I was checking for.
Yeah, just a second. So for the teachers, we have done it right. See,
okay.
Like that.
Script. Okay. In the script. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any more doubts? Yeah. So we have done all this. So we have created tables and we have inserted inside the student courses and teachers. So let's try to see a few more things that we need to have a look at. So we have seen create, we have seen delete or drop, we have seen insert, we have seen select, and there is another thing called update. You can update the already present data. So let's say that yeah. So in the courses table, you have these null values, right? So let's try to fill in those null values. Okay. So what you can do is update. We'll try the table's name, courses, set number of credits. Now this is how we use it. So first we'll update. What are you going to update? We're going to update courses, and we'll try to set number of credits. So we're going to change or update the number of credits. Now be cautious, be very cautious when you're doing this update, because there is something called condition here where number of credits equals to null. So I am giving this condition. Equals to, let's say, 5. See, update courses set number of credits equals to 5 where number of credits is equals to null. Now if I try to execute this one, so
It's null.
I have given wrong. Okay, it is not equals to. See, two rows are affected. Execute. You can see instead of those null, it is 5 and 5 now. So here it is, yeah. So here instead of is I have given equals to. That is my bad. So you have to give is null. Is null and not null is there. So these two are the options. Okay. Now what happens is when you put the update statement without the condition here, all the number of credits will be updated to 5. So whenever you do updating a large kind of data, so it is not you will be updating it, the database admin will, but when the updation is happening, you have to make sure that you have given the perfect condition. If you do not specify any condition, all the data that is there in the number of credits will be turned into 5. Okay, so we can update the existing data using this particular option, or what we can do is we can also delete also. So you can see delete from courses, and here also we have to mention the condition here, where let's say that we're going to remove the React. Let's try to remove the React here, where id is equals to 5. You can either mention it like this, or id equals to 1, or else where title is equals to React. Okay, so let's try to execute this one. Say one row is affected. Now let's open it. Say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is gone entirely. So in the course ID, we know that it won't repeat the same thing. It will again, increment one by one. Now, if the 5 is gone, it is gone entirely. So the React is gone, and yeah. So whenever we delete something, it will be gone permanently. So that is why we need to.
Just a question, Krishna. I mean, after you delete or update, you don't have to save it.
No, see, here we are. Here the database will be doing it, right? So that is already saving the data, because this data, whatever that we have mentioned, the HTML, Java, Python, all these are already saved. Now, if you delete one thing, that thing will be deleted, and the others are displayed. See, now if you select the courses.
The thing that you're deleting, it gets the thing that you're deleting or updating, it gets saved automatically.
Yeah, so the action will be done. Now, if you delete one thing, here we have deleted the React, right? So it is gone permanently. You can't again recall that React again.
Okay.
Okay, but in the updation, we have done the update, and you can again change the update from 5 to 2. But in the delete, once that thing is gone, it is gone.
Okay.
Okay. So we have seen update and delete also.
Hello.
Yes.
Sir, when to use is and when to use equals to? Because earlier you used is, and in this case you used equal to.
Yeah.
For the condition statement.
So what for the conditions? Let me do that again first. So let's try to do the update again. Update and the title name. Update courses. We'll give the table name and set number of pets. Now here we have to give the equals to sign, wherein what is the thing that we have to update. So here either if you want to give a character or a string, you can put that inside the columns, inside the semicolons, or if you're giving any number, you can just directly give the number. Now here when we are specifying a condition, there you should use the is or not, where number of credits is, let's say, 5, number of queries equals to 5, was it? Yes. So when we are giving this particular options, where if it is a null option, so you have that particular box as a null, then you can keep it the is or not. Now if it is not null, say if not null, if you click as not null, so not null means everything is a not null in here. 2 is 2, 3, 3, 5, 4, all are not nulls. Everything will be affected. Now if we have a null option, then you can keep it as is null. Whenever a null option is there, there you put the 7. Now we do not have any null option. So what we do, wherever there is 5, we're going to put that as 7. One row affected, execute. It is 7. So whenever we have any null options that are available, then we use the is null or not null. If you do not have, if you are giving any kind of character or a number, we use the equals to sign. Hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just give me a minute. Yeah, sorry for the delay. So how to assign the primary key to the column and how two tables can be linked or merged. So yeah, so that is where we're going to go now. So how do we assign primary key to any kind of tables? So we have created the students and courses table here using the SQL code. So in that we have assigned the primary key inside the code only. For any unique column that we have, any unique insertions that always happen, always repetitive, and there is no same thing repeating again, and that is where we assign the primary key option while you're writing the code. And if you're not writing the code, if you want to do that using the system options, you can just go to the table here and you can just go to, whenever you're creating it, any kind of table, create the table, and say you're giving the ID. Now if you right click on it, you will have the option to set primary key. If you click on it, it will become a primary key. Okay, so that is how you do it. And how to connect to two tables that we have.
So once again,
Yes,
Krishna, can you please show it once again how to do that?
yeah. So create new table, and if you click on ID, here you have the option right at the end. Now if you right click on it, you will be able to see the set primary key option. Enter and it will become a primary key. Okay.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
So we have created 3 different kinds of tables here, and then now we'll see how do we connect more 1 or 2 tables here. So that is where joins come in. So there is something called joins, which helps us to join 2 or more tables. Before we need to join them, or before we have to use the join table, we need to connect. Like we know that all these different kinds of tables are separate tables now, they are not related. So teachers are separate, students are separate, and courses are separate. So now we have to connect all these tables in order for us to have a view of all the teachers, students, and courses. How do we join? Now for that, what we'll do is we'll create another table so that whenever we want to view a combination of 2 tables details, we can view that in that particular table. So school, and I'll try to create a new table here, and here I'll try to give the ID first, and then it will become an int, and then it is not null, and I'll set it as primary key, and I'm going to give the identity here, identity, and done. So now I want to make a table wherein I want to see the enrollments, like how many students are there, and or you can say that which teacher is teaching which subject to which student, that I want to know. So for that I need to have a teacher ID first, teacher ID, and ID could be int, and the course ID, and course ID will also be an integer, and it will not be null, and then the student ID, student ID, and is not also null. So now how do we connect the teacher table, the course table, and the student table to this one? So for that you can again go and right click. You can see after the set primary key, insert, delete, we have the something called relationships. Now if you click on the relationships, you'll have this particular box opened. Now it is currently blank, and you click on add, you'll have all this. In this you'll have this table and column specification here. Double click on it, and yeah, so here the primary key table and the foreign key table. Here you have the courses, students, teacher, table 1. So we have to name them. So instead of table 1, let's name it this one as enrollments. Enrollments. We have named this as enrollments. Now let's try to give the relationship. Now this teacher ID should be connected to the ID of the teacher that we have given in the tables of the teachers. You can see. So here the courses table, all the tables that we have created, courses, enrollment, students, and teachers. The first is teacher ID is there. So teacher, and in that teacher all these options have there, right? First name, last name, date of join, and teacher ID. So in the teachers table, the teacher ID is connected to the teacher ID of the enrollments table. Now I hope you're understanding this. Like we have the teachers table, the courses table, the enrollments, and the students. So we are connecting all those 3 tables to one table here, to the enrollments table. For that, the first is teacher ID, right? So we open the teachers table, and in that teachers table you have all these different kinds of columns, which is teacher ID, first name, last name, and date of join. So the teacher ID of the teachers table is connected to the teacher ID of the enrollments, and we click on OK. Okay, so we can rename it, and can make it as teachers, for example. Done. And we can click on add more. We can again do the same thing. So we have connected teacher, and we can again connect that to courses. So courses, and in that we have the course ID, and we're going to connect that course ID to the course ID of the enrollments, and we click on OK. Course is done, and we can add one more thing, which we have to do the students. So in that students, and the ID in the students is connected to the student ID. Okay, so we have given 3 connections, so 3 relationships: students, So in this, student ID is connected to the ID of the student here, and the course ID is connected to the ID of the course, and the teacher ID is connected to the ID of the teacher. You can close it and you can try to save this one. It will show this dialog option. The following tables will be saved. Do you want to continue? You can click on yes, and all the relationships are done. So now we have created that table. Refresh it, and if you open this one, you'll have the enrollments table. Now, so here we still haven't put any details in this yet. Now if you try to open the enrollments table, see, nothing is there yet. So what we do, we edit, and yeah, let's try to have a look on all the different kinds of tables and the details that it has: the courses, the students, and the teachers. So we have 3 teachers here, and we have 4 students, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 subjects or 5 courses. So what can we do? So the teacher ID. So we have 3 teachers. So instead of writing their names here, we can just give the teacher ID. Okay. So let's say teacher ID 2, and the course ID that is going to teach. How many do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Here we do not have 5 here. Remember. So if we give 5, we'll get an error. So in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Let's say that we give 6. And how many students do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So out of those, let's say that student ID 4 is there. And then teacher ID 2 is again teaching a 4, and for the student ID 3. And let's say teacher ID 3 again is teaching 1, and that is to 1. And teacher ID 3 is teaching, say, 1, 2, 2, and so it can be a tedious task when you're filling it, but most of the time you'll get all the different kinds of data. For the database admin that I'm talking about, you'll get all the different kinds of data that are already pre-stored. There will be a mechanism for it, or else you'll get a data filled Excel sheet wherein you can directly import that in your database. And let's say that 1, and what he is teaching, he's teaching course number 2 to the student ID. Let's say that 4. Okay. Yeah, so I think these are enough. So let's try to save these changes, and I'll just try to remove all this one. Done, done, done. Yeah. So now if I select, see, all these options are here, but I don't think that you understand all these things, right? So teacher ID 2, 3, 4, 5. What is all this? Now let's try to make sense out of this table. Okay. So what we can do is, select from enrollments. Yeah, as I've told you, inner join. So joins are the commands that we use to join more than one table. So 2, 3 tables. There are different kinds of joins that are available, like inner join, left join, out join, and full join. So we don't have to go deep into this, this entire part. So let's try to focus on the inner join first. So inner join. Yeah. So let's try to do this teachers one. Okay. So inner join teacher or teachers on. So teacher ID, let's say. We have teacher ID there. So inner join teachers on teacher ID is equals to enroll.teacher ID. So I'll just explain you what is this code about.
We should give alias names, right?
Sorry?
We should give some alias names, right?
No, I'll just tell you. Inner join students dot student ID is equals to enroll date dot so enrollments dot student ID. So now if we execute it, let's see. So the inner join. So inner join in the sense, so first we have the enrollments table. So we have done that select from enrollments. All the enrollments table has done. So then you can see that inner join students on student ID. So we have the student ID here. The entire student's ID name is given. So that is how you can join two kinds of tables, and you can do the same thing for inner join courses on courses dot course ID that is equals to enrollments dot course ID. See, the course ID is also, now you can see. So this is how you can use the join statements. There will be different kinds of join statements, like the left join will be there, and the right join will be there, and the full join will be there. So these statements you use in order to join two or more than two tables and view that into the screen. Okay. So these are all the, actually for a business analyst, there's a lot of things regarding SQL. So the basic that we can have is the select and the view options. The select options is the more one, and you can use the joins in order to combine more than one table to view that on the screen. Okay. Any doubts to this point? Because this is the last topic that we have to discuss in this particular webinar. So yeah, so the joins is the last topic. Any doubts regarding the entire session?
Yeah, I just have one question. Can you provide the setup of the MySQL?
Setup of MySQL. This is not MySQL. This is MS SQL. You can easily download those. Like there are
Is it an open source?
MySQL is an open source. Like you can use that.
Okay.
But the MS SQL and Oracle might not be known.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So MS SQL, I think you can download the basic version. If you type on MS SQL, you can download that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions, guys? Regarding SQL? Yeah, one by one. Hello?
Yeah, will you be providing this recorded session?
Yeah, of course. In 2 or 3 days, you'll be getting the recorded link.
Sorry?
In 2 or 3 days, you'll be getting the recorded link.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, anybody else?
Yeah. Hi, Krishna.
Hi.
Krishna, may I know what is the difference between the drop and delete?
Yeah. So the delete
Function?
is the drop is used to delete the entire database.
Okay.
The delete is used to delete the rows and columns inside a table.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there is one more truncate, I believe.
Yes.
That
Truncate is
is
also there. That is used to delete the tables, the entire tables. So one is
okay.
for
So that
one
entire
is, yeah, that the delete is used for the details that is there inside the table. The truncate is used to delete the entire table, and the drop is used to delete the entire database.
okay. Okay. Fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And if you want to have if you want to learn more about SQL, I think the best open source option would be Double3 Schools. So in that they will provide a wide variety of options, and you can always do the practice sessions also. They'll have that set up on that website built. So if you want to learn more about SQL, and if you want to go through the route of database admin, for example, so that will be a great starting point for you guys. And yeah, any more doubts on this? No, all clear.
Krishna, can we get software like this freely available to download and practice on any particular website?
Yeah, so you can try to download the MySQL or this Microsoft SQL server is you can find it freely. You can download it and use it, and there are other open source softwares as well. And yeah, so you can do that.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Yes, someone was asking something.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello. Business analyst will only read these, right? They will not create, update, or delete. They will be able only read the SQL. That's all.
Yes, yes. Yeah, as a business analyst, you would only be reading the data, so you wouldn't do any of the things that we have discussed except the reading part.
Okay. The position is SQL is separate in some companies and BA is separate in some companies like that.
Sorry.
In some companies, the position like SQL developer separately and business analyst separately.
Yeah, so they're not at all linked, right? So SQL person, the database admin or the junior database admin will do a different kind of work compared to business analyst, right? So they are two different professions. So if you want to have access to any kind of data that is available that you want to look into, so you can ask the database admin for the access to it. He can grant you the access, and he can revoke the access at any time he wants.
Okay.
Hi Krishna, this is Vaishali.
Hi.
Actually, I just wanted to ask because sometime interviewer asks like which version did you worked on of SQL. So, is there any version of the SQL which we should be remember about it? Because sometime interviewer asks like which version did you use?
Yeah. So that question might be for the language or might be for the server that you might use. Like right now I'm using the Microsoft SQL server. That is the 2018 version. So if there is any other new version, I might use that. Like there can be, if you go for a SQL based profession, for example, I'm saying, so there can be two divisions. Like someone might prefer MySQL, someone might prefer Oracle, and someone might prefer Microsoft server. So the version option, yeah. So in NoSQL, there will be different commands. Like you can see that. I think if you're aware of MongoDB, so MongoDB is a NoSQL database. So there will be slight differences in the SQL and the NoSQL. Yeah. So coming to the version part, so that can be related to this server desktop, the version that you practice the language on, the Microsoft server or the Oracle, or sometimes it can be the language. Like if you look into Java or Python, there can be new versions releasing. There will be new versions releasing. Like they'll be adding some kind of classes or some kind of libraries to the language, and they'll release a new version. So then the question, if they particularly ask you about a language, which version of SQL language you're using, then you have to go through, before you go into the interview, before you started learning the SQL, you have to make sure that is there any version that is available or that has been going on or that has a recent update has happened, or if not, most of the time it would be about the server that you have used, which version of server that you have used. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, any more? So for now I'll be stopping the screen sharing now.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you. And someone asked, is there any difference in using MySQL and MS SQL with respect to screens and coding? Yeah, the coding will be the same. So in any software that you use, Oracle, MySQL, MS SQL, the SQL language will be the same. The only thing is the options that you have inside that particular software. Okay. So all doubts are clear. Got an idea of what is SQL and how a business analyst would use it?
Yes, Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes, Krishna.
Yes.
Okay then, guys, thank you so much for listening. And
Thank you so much for listening. And
yes.
Thank you, Krishna.
Guys, thank you so much.